I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and today we're continuing our discussion this week where we went from talking about manufacturing and supply chains to gaming, entertainment, esports, to now hospitality and travel, a $1 trillion industry, some analysts say, and probably much bigger than that. Something has been dramatically impacted, just like our previous topics this week, over the last 6 months. However, the big thing with these industries, again, hospitality and travel, is what's going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. And how will technologies that we've really consumed over the past 6 months play a role in their future? How will things like artificial intelligence, how will virtual reality, how will data, how will all of these potentially autonomous flying vehicles, as we've talked about on previous episodes around this topic, how will these all play a role in the way that we look at travel and the way that we look at the hospitality industry, all the way from our food to our service to the actual experiences that we have? Well, that's what we're here to talk to you about today. And we've brought some of the best from around the world to talk to us, not just what's happening on a macro level around the world, but also on a micro level, whether that be from Latin America to the US, to LATAM, to the Eastern Europe, all around. We've got a lot to cover for you today. And with that, as we do here on every episode of VCTV, big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you're an investor and would like to be on a show like today, share your insights, share your thoughts about what you're seeing or happening around the world in different technologies and industries, we'd love to have you. Reach out, entrepreneurs. You'd like the chance to pitch us as investors, get a chance to talk to us about what you're doing and learn a little bit more about how we think, tune in and reach out. Elena and I and the entire LA Token team would be happy to hear from you. And any feedback on what we can do to improve, give it to us. And with that, a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for bringing VCTV possible to your screen on any device, anywhere you may be watching around the world. Now, we've got an awesome panel I don't want to take away from, and we've got a great show ahead of us today and many more to come this week. So let's get started. First and foremost, Julio, welcome back to the show. We had you here yesterday talking about everything around gaming and entertainment, naturally bringing you back to talk about travel and hospitality. Welcome, a little intro and a little background.
Thank you. Maybe not so naturally, but it just happens to be one of our core industries for investment and general advice to clients, travel and leisure. Probably even a little bigger than what we do in gaming and esports, although both are, happen to be our cup of tea. So from yesterday, I simply changed my background, and I can tell you that New York Bay Capital is an investor and an advisor. We are based in New York City, and we've been active for 5 years now, independently. The partners, we got all together from various big companies, and we started this smaller company. We raised a good fund, and we've been investing right now, looking specifically at hotel and leisure options that are better technologically, and even airlines. Happy to be here, and I hope we meet more investment candidates as a result of this conference, as we usually do.
Wonderful. Even airlines. This is going to be interesting to talk a little bit about. So you're playing the spread, hospitality, travel, everything in between, including the airlines, the connection point. Julio, get ready. We're excited to dive into that. And I know you have some experience focused around Latin America. So I definitely want to unpack that in addition to what you're seeing out of the New York area as well. Next as well, Mark, welcome back to the show. Pleasure to always have you. If you could, a little intro and background on yourself as well.
USMC Reserves, 15 years investing, venture fund, built it from scratch, turned around bankrupt company, stage 4 cancer survivor, Lebanese. And I just want to say, haven't slept in 2 days, and a prayer for the 150 Lebanese that got killed yesterday, and the 4,000 that are bloodied, and the other several thousand that they still haven't found.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome back to the show. And on that note, definitely hopes and everything out to those who were affected yesterday. it was a very tragic event, but we'll continue on and keep those in our thoughts. So thank you very much, Mark. Cleet, welcome to the show, first time guest as well. It's a pleasure to have you. If you can, a little intro and a little background on yourself as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Cleet. I work with Julio. I am a partner at New York Bay Capital. We've been working together for 5 years. My background is in Africa. I'm originally from Africa. Excuse the background noise. So we've mostly been working with African companies that are trying to raise capital in Africa as well as here, which is tricky, kind of like Latin America, and that's what we've been doing.
Wonderful. Welcome to the show for the first time. Excited, just as I mentioned with Julio, Mark, to dive into some of those more specific details. So with you around Africa and what's happening there, playing the cross-border on the other side, from cross-border from the US to Africa. There's a lot of activity there, and so it's gonna be exciting to dive in. And next up, another new guest on our show, and a good friend of mine with a vast amount of experience, Kent. Welcome to the show for the first time. Make sure you unmute, and if you can, a little intro, a little background on yourself.
Thanks, Kyle. My name is Kent Makashima. I'm currently a co-founder and CEO of Chain, a supply chain technology startup. My background's kind of mixed, a lot in like the IoT, blockchain space and expertise. But I've worked with venture capitalists, angel investors, different firms on providing due diligence, investment support, and analysis as well. I guess relevant to today's topic, I did work with a travel portfolio company at one of the firms I worked for. So excited to definitely talk about the travel and hospitality space.
Wonderful, wonderful, and welcome to. Happy to have both you and Cleet today as our new guests. And last but not least, my second half, my other co-host, as Mr. Gary Fowler is not on today, so I am happy to announce and welcome back Noble. For those few people that don't know how good your fashion advice is, please give a little background, a little intro on yourself, and we'll go ahead and get started from there.
Yeah, for 26 years, I've been in the investment industry, written several books. The last two are Winning the Trading Game and Trade Like a Pro. I've been on Fox Business News, Bloomberg, but this is always the best to be with you, Kyle. My company is Dracone Capital Partners. We work with pre-seed, seed, and almost pre-series A companies help them find capital. I'm also an advisor for M Accelerator in Los Angeles. And we have a venture fund that we've initiated during COVID-19, of course, because that's the best time to do it. We're in the middle of raising 40 million, 15 million from accredited investors, another 25 from institutional. And our focus has always been in both the augmented reality and virtual reality space. I hold a patent there and lead up a tech company in that space. And so when it comes to travel, we've seen a huge explosion in the utilization of just different VR and AR technology for particularly business travel. And I think that this has kind of expedited some of that. And we may find that unicorn use case pop up for VR because of the changes that people need to make, but still need to travel.
Absolutely. And whether that be through, Julio's wonderful background, or we do step into a headset device, whether that be something like Decentraland or some other type of experience. We've seen Google start to mess around with this as well, and other companies as they start to enter the spaces, including Apple and the like as well. And as I mentioned to begin today's episode, this is a $1 trillion industry, 1 trillion on a minimum that we're being told by analysts. That's a very big, impactful industry on a global scale. Now we know that the past 6 months, a lot has happened, or in some cases, not much has happened. But all jokes aside with that, would love to hear each of your opinion on kind of where things are and what you see coming forward in the next year as we start to kind of transition, to Noble's point, transition how we think about travel, how we think about some of these new experiences. So Julio, let's kick it off with you. Where do you see things going in the next 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18 months, as we start to rethink what it means to travel?
If I can share my screen, let me see if that's possible. No, I could show you some statistics. Maybe Elena can fix it, but let me know. You know, IATA, the International Association for Travel Agencies, puts out this report, and let me see if I can find it right here. You could see it right there, and I think that this graphic. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, this graphic tells it all. You had a constant growth here from 2010, right, to 2020, and we were going down the dotted line. All of a sudden, something happened. I hear it had something to do with a Corona beer, and they so we went all the way down here, and now we've got the recovery, right? And so the recovery is anything here in yellow. You're going to have a what they call the range of uncertainty for the recovery. And this is IATA. This is about the airline industry, but it's air passenger forecasts. And unless people are flying, I mean, there is no travel and leisure, hospitality industry, because people have to get there. And if you did this for bus lines, it would look the same. So, but for airlines, lots of statistics are kept. And what you have here is that hopefully by 2024, we're going to get back to where we were in 2019. But, we're definitely off the original forecast. And this here is the gap, which even after 4 years from the pandemic, at least according to IATA, we're not going to get back, right?
Wow.
So, these are very bad times for travel and hotels and all of that. We one of our clients is a major hotel in Mexico. It's been shut down since March, and we know the owners, but it operates under a brand, right? One of these big international brands that everybody's heard of. And their problem is that even when the Mexican government says that maybe it's okay to operate on some sort of limited scale, the brand, which is the hotel manager or the operator, has had this corporate policy of we will not open, because they fear more a headline about one guest getting sick at their hotel than actually operating on a 20%, 30%, 50% basis. So we have there's fear, and there is an obvious lack of ability to travel due to closed borders, as well as an economic crisis. So I couldn't think of a worse time to be in an owner or an operator of any kind of business that has to do with travel, leisure, hospitality. But I also could not think of a better time to be an investor in at this time, right? So if you're really one of these people who say you gotta strike, when everything looks terrible, when all the forecasts look bad, this is the time. I think there's no other industry or group of industries that compare. I mean, the pandemic has actually been good for some medical businesses and for many other things. Even oil has recovered, but travel, hospitality, they're in for a lot of pain. But if you can invest today and you can wait 1, 2, 3 years, you could see that the slope of that thing I showed you was pretty steep, even though we went down to such a low level that the growth from the low point this year to 2024 is much, much steeper than anything we had before.
Well, and it's a lot of built up tension. I think that sets a good foundation to where things are, right? It's very real. Very few people have traveled, it wasn't just in the past 6 months, it's still currently happening as well. And if anything, travel has shifted, maybe not as many planes, more local travel as well, which has also changed the hospitality industry from those big hotels to maybe smaller ones, or similar to what we talked about yesterday about Nintendo Switches, camping gear, tents, sleeping bags. This basic, camping gear has hit a premium online, and in some cases is delayed weeks upon weeks to get in place, just because people are looking to travel more locally. And Noble, I want to come to you next. I see you shaking your head. How do you see things, and where do you see things kind of going forward here in the travel and hospitality industry?
No, you hit the nail on the head. There's the idea of the staycation kind of popped up maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. And now it's been, because of COVID, like a triple down. We've seen more friends and acquaintances go camping and take long drives up the California coast than I've ever seen before. And so, anecdotally, just to reiterate what Julio showed on the charts, people are just finding different ways to travel for leisure. And there is opportunity, in all kind of adversity. And I believe those people who, I don't know if you've heard of glamping, but the glamour camping set, that this whole situation has been a huge boon for them, because people get a chance to quote unquote camp, but not have to be outdoors. Now, leisure is not my specialty when it comes to travel. We always focus on the business component of travel. And even amongst ourselves, anecdotally, Zoom, that we're all interacting in a different way. But the government and a lot of places that businesses that really needed to travel to either show drafts and documents, who were really interested in showing 3D models and architectures, are really doing a hard pivot to virtual reality in order to integrate a full-blown experience for their clients. Things still need to be built. Still, development needs to still go on, and you still need the minds of multiple either architects, designers, mechanical engineers on various projects. And so they really don't want to risk themselves being in a cylinder going across the country just to share CAD drawings. And so VR has become a real staple in trying to integrate what's happening. And it's funny, prior to this, if you guys know anything about the industry, Euphoria had come out with something that was pretty unique. They had already shown multi-user AR at the last large conference, in which multiple engineers could work on designs and manipulate them through VR as a group. Well, this accelerated that spatial utilization of VR so that everyone on the engineering team could feel confident. And so travel in and of itself, I believe that this moment has changed business travel in a huge way, in which the alternatives have aggressively been pursued. Zoom alone has started to help people raise capital with ever stepping into the foot of a VC's office. Julio's talking about investments he's made, and everyone's, so the world has changed in general. And so business travel, I think, may not come back the same way leisure travel will post-COVID.
Yeah, I think you're right. And a lot of analysts have shared very similar views, right, to talking about on the public market side of where things are going to travel, right? Like business travel may never recover. And that's also an okay thing, as this new virtual connection allows us to be so many places at once. I mean, right now on this call, we've got 4 different countries represented on a minimum. And here we are in doing business, right? If a company was to come on to pitch us, they could have the chance to pitch, multiple investors in multiple different countries, all interested in them. When before, as we've talked about last week in our summary episode, is you generally have to get on 4 flights. That's 4 flights of multiple hours round trip just to get into each of our offices to then have that presentation. So you're absolutely right. Just on the investment side, from the manufacturing side, even furthermore. I mean, we've talked about the digitization of so many industries, and this is just playing a role as, unfortunately, travel from a business side actually may be reduced due to the acceleration of digitization, which is interesting. And Mark, I want to come to you, Gary and Kent next, but Mark, on your side, what are you seeing happening in the travel? I mean, you and I have talked about this offline, online, but where are you seeing things currently and kind of going forward in the future?
Well, first of all, in your drawer, you should have 2 things: a real estate deed with oceanfront property and gold. Okay. Now, when it comes to travel, I don't care about COVID. If your business is strong and powerful, all COVID makes you a little bit more powerful and tougher. It is never a good idea to invest in travel. Travel has been crap throughout the years. Instead of losing 40 million a day, we're losing 100 million. Okay, now I've invested with a government. When a government subsidizes an airline, I'm in. I've invested in regional airlines. If the regional airline are small, like in areas, for example, in Switzerland or Brazil or whatever, it works. If the regional airline is with a glamping and you're getting like the groups of family, 6 and 8, and you buy a couple of jets, it can work. But even like a Surf Air can fail if the planes aren't bought properly and so forth. But you better be passionate about it, you better understand it, and you better have a CEO who's done it for many, many years. And I'm looking at one now where the CEO has gone to 4 to 5 different airlines. It's very, very difficult from that perspective. That's on that. On the real estate side, it's all about the experience. I've done it with a multi-billionaire in Acapulco, and I did it like a timeshare. I added the health piece of it. If you make it an experience to a person, they will come. That's the key. Now, when there is no COVID, you can be an order taker and people will just come in. That's not relationship building. That's not investing. That's not sales. It's like people who say, oh, Mark, I know how to invest. I've never operated anything. Well, you know what? You can't run a business through a spreadsheet, and you will not keep your wife on a spreadsheet. You got to really understand the business intricacies. So I'm all about real estate on the ocean, and I'll buy it all day long. I'll support it. Africa, Mexico, I don't care where. You just have to understand the culture and be invested with somebody who knows the area. As far as airlines, yes, if it's Brazil or different areas and it's a regional. If it's a big one like a continental, no, absolutely not. Southwest is an outliner. That's
very much
my
so.
2 words.
No, your 2+ words. Just teasing you, but yes, your point is very valid. Is, you know, travel can be very cynical. It's more goes down to that experience, right? Getting from point A to point B is just a part of the experience. There's so much more that plays a role. Gary, I'm coming to you last because I think there's a big piece I'm leading up to. It's the new electricity, if you will. Nonetheless, Kent, I do want to get to you here next, but again, Mark's point is so accurate. You know, you can't live on a spreadsheet. You can't build a business just solely and run it on a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are easy to tweak and make things look perfect. So when it comes to any industry, whether that be travel or otherwise, get out from behind the spreadsheet and actually experience what that industry has to offer, because things can change very vastly. Kent, to you, what are you seeing currently in the industry, and where do you see things going forward here in the next 12 to 18?
Yeah, so I think at least from like the investment side, the initial shock of like coronavirus is like over. You know, we're back, you know, looking to make investments, you know, looking out, you know, the 9 to 18 months ahead to see, you know, what we do now, how it'll affect as the world kind of changes and shifts. Interestingly, it's, you know, I like to look at more of like tools instead of like the macro like environment, you know, like as we say, picks and shovels. You know, a lot of like infrastructure plays and platforms, you know, like Airbnb. I think Vacasa or whatever that company is, they just raised their next Series C, maybe at a lower evaluation. But if you're on like the PE side and looking for like value investments, while these companies are struggling, it's a good time to come in and get a good deal. Because honestly, you know, with the amount of you know, control they have over like the vacation property, you know, rental property areas, it's going to be very hard for another smaller company to come in and take their spot. But instead, you know, they have enough resources to weather through the coronavirus panic, and it's a good value maybe to come in at this point. Another thing I like to look at is, you know, interesting like Airstream right now. They've seen their sales double over the coronavirus pandemic. And it kind of leads that, you know, even though like hospitality industry may be down as a whole, it does, there are these small like niche markets that are thriving. You know, like you said, it's like camping gear. For me, I've been very much following like the RV industry. A lot of people, you know, they don't want to go out and take a plane, but they'll always be like, oh, maybe it's time to buy that, you know, Airstream to go so I can take that trip up to Montana and, you know, do a little bit of camping there. So right now, most of my investment is just focused on making some value plays on these companies that, you know, might need a little bit more support to get through the next 9 months or so.
Hashtag van life is another part of that story. A big movement from the millennial Gen Z generation, but in all trueness, it's actually something that plays into the glamping space, as these vehicles, once vans, have been re-outfitted, spending anywhere from 20 to hundreds of thousands of dollars re-outfitting vehicles for the new travel. And in some cases, in some cities, these, kind of mixture between Airstreams and campers to passenger vans have been sold out. Again, I continue to use this analogy of things being sold out because people are rushing to all of these things that just did not have the supply, or do not have the supply, to reach the amount of demand, as people are looking to do things a little bit more localized. Last but not least, Gary Fowler, welcome back to the show, my friend. To you, same question. Where do you see things currently with travel in the next 12 to 18? And after that, I'll have a follow-up for you.
Well, so it's interesting. So Kent stole my thunder on this. We're dealing with the RV environment with one of my startups. So it's incredible how it's expanded. And the thing that's really interesting, Kyle, think about, by going together, families are now going camping again. This is stuff that happened 30 years ago, right? These are the kind of things, all this stuff on the pandemic side, it's really interesting because we're going back. In a way, it's not bad. So I actually was on eBay looking for an Airstream. I wouldn't have done it 5 years ago, but I'm actually looking today. So what I think, and by the way, we have a company that I funded that actually does batteries, modular batteries, like a Tesla. And one of the opportunities, one of the markets are RVs. And who would have thought a year ago that it would be such a hot market to have modular stackable batteries? But guess what? You're right about glamping. They want the technology inside those environments, the Airstreams or whatever, Winnebagos, they want it. And by the way, people are spending a lot of money for these, right? A couple $100,000 if you're on a Bluebird platform. It's not cheap. So it's not like the old days where you got a canvas tent and you took it in the back of a station wagon and went out camping. This is a whole different deal. It's like really like taking your home with you. So I think it's a good thing. And I think there's, on a way, this COVID side, if we've talked many times, have created some obstacles, but it's also created phenomenal opportunities. And I like with some of the things that are happening, as we talked about before, bike sales are going through the roof. You can't get a bike. Try to find a bike. It's crazy.
In many cities and many states, mind you. This is not singular.
I was going to buy a bike shop a few months ago. I really, just for me personally, I've got 11 bikes. I wanted a bike shop. I went out. It's like the guy had no bikes. You couldn't even stock the place. Even if I wanted to buy, you couldn't get an inventory. Because why? People are putting in their glampers and going out camping with them,
Well, just a quick sidebar. So funny you mentioned that, because one of the big trends that's popping around the investment community right now on the VC level is e-scooters, or e-bikes, e-bikes. That e-bikes have now become an investable opportunity, when 5-7 years ago, when they started coming on the scene in various cities, there just wasn't a model for them. And now you're seeing this as an actual model that is taking off. To your point, people can't find regular bikes, so they're buying the electric bikes for either longer distance or opportunity.
Kyle, I did 5 years ago. I bought an e-bike and people thought I was crazy. They were looking at this bike. I bought a Gen Z, a Mahindra. I bought two of them actually. And people thought I was crazy. I bought it out in California. Actually, I had one in Palm Beach too. But I'm riding around on a bike. I'll never forget. I went to the bike store I won't mention a name, but on El Camino Real in Palo Alto. And I went into my friend in there. He said, I would never buy a bike. Why would you want an e-bike when you can have a motorcycle? I said, because it's fun. Mm-hmm. And now I've got 5 e-bikes. I got 11 bikes, but I got 5 e-bikes. And the situation, you can't find them, right? And people want to get them. So I think this COVID thing now has really changed things in terms of the way we travel. It's changed things in terms of our lives and how closer we're getting back to that family environment. We've had to adjust a lot, and we're using technology. Did you see Apple sales are through the roof? Because people are buying Macs because they got to do Zoom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, keep it simple, stupid. And guess what? Chairs, try to find a chair. Our desk. I've been waiting for a month and a half from IKEA for a damn desk. It's crazy,
A funny sidebar, because we talked about this pre-show, so we're going to bring it up anyways. It plays a role in this. So back to, again, things being sold out. Camping chairs. Camping chairs are now at a premium. They're double to triple the price. And if you can find one that hasn't sold out, its delay is 3 to 4 weeks. So that camping chair, I'm getting a little steam off my my chest here because I'm frustrated about this. Yeah, you want a chair, you gotta wait 3 weeks, which means if you want to sit in it in the next few days, guess what? You're waiting 3 to 4 weeks to sit in that chair. So to Gary's point, all of this that we've been talking about, just setting the stage, and we're about to come around for a few more questions here, but just setting the stage, there's so much that are impacted in these industries, so much fringe, so much opportunity in the smaller bits and pieces, the things we take for granted every day, that when it comes to travel and hospitality, it is wide open. It is fair game. And with that, before we get into more opportunities, Gary, I'm going to come right back to you, and coming around to everyone with each of your areas of expertise. Technology. So technology, Noble kind of kicked this off with AR, VR. Technology is playing a role in how these things are changing. So to you, around artificial intelligence and maybe some other things, how do you see data and AI really retransforming hospitality and travel for us in ways that may not have been thought of 6 months ago? Starting with you, Gary. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is, so we've got to be a lot smarter than we were before, right? In terms of travel. So if we look at where artificial intelligence can play, so we've got to make sure, look at the number of airlines that are down now. How in the world if I tried to get a ticket from West Palm Beach to San Francisco, how do I find as a traveler a ticket? I mean, it's crazy. So I think systems in place to be able to show what flights are available. I mean, I just want to know where I can fly from today. So those kind of things that are assistants to help make our life better. What hotels are open and what aren't? I go to Priceline to book a hotel. I can't tell if they're open or not anymore. So how do we find out easily a list? So I think some assistance to be able to help us there. I think finding places with this COVID changing so quickly, where the COVID is, so we can understand, can I take my camper and travel to Indiana, or can I travel to North Carolina? Is it going to be safe? Can I even get across the border? I heard they're looking, especially we're from Florida. I'm in Florida right now. They look at license plates of Floridians in different states. I don't want to get stopped in quarantine in Georgia. That's not a good place to be quarantined, if you know what I mean.
Well, good Southern cooking, but nonetheless, I'm with you. Having that personalization, having that data, having that assistant, which is playing a role into the bigger thing we're going to be talking about a little bit later this week around consumer devices and consumer e-commerce, is really that emergence or real application of assistance. We've teased it with certain devices. I won't say their names in case they're being overheard in all of our homes, since I can trigger that. But all of these devices were there.
Can I say one other thing, Kyle?
Yeah,
one other thing I think we need to take a look at, right? And it hasn't been done. Let's say cruise ships today. I don't know about anybody on here, but I'm not sure any one of us would want to jump on a cruise ship right now, right? Not probably. Right. And the situation is, so how do we take technologies like thermal imaging, so we can actually thermal temperature detectors and tell what kind of temperature somebody has coming on? So we need to figure out how we can make it safer for the people that come on the ships, that come on the planes, specifically ships, right? So we understand that it's safe. I don't want to go on some cruise ship if there's a high chance I'm going to get COVID. I don't want to be stuck in the middle of the ocean somewhere, floating around for 2 or 3 weeks, trying to figure out if I can come to some port. So we need to come up with, one is the protection. The other thing is, in terms of the technology and travel, we need to come up with these vaccines so people can actually get vaccinated so that we don't have the issue, and contact tracing, right? So we know who should be on there or not, who's high risk, who's not.
And this, you bring up contact tracing. This is also something that's big, that's playing a role into travel and hospitality. And I want to make sure everyone else gets a quick opinion in here around technology as well. And thank you, Gary. Julio, to you, and then Mark, I'll come to you next. But Julio, to you, where do you see, technology playing a role in these industries as we move forward here in the next few months as well? And which technologies do you see really dominating from an investor perspective we should be paying attention to?
Well, building up on what Gary said, and then I gotta also talk a little bit about what Mark said. But what I think what Gary is talking about is curation. I think that when the internet came in, you would say that probably the thing you expected out of the internet was curation, right? I mean, there was also the social communication aspect of it, and downloading information, right? Those maybe were the other two things. But when it came to actually, going to a site that would tell you what's best, what's available, what's not available, what you can do, what restaurants are open in your neighborhood, what movies. I mean, that's what the internet, I think, where people really adopted it, was that idea that from your phone you could just find out a whole bunch of information, but it was information that was curated for you, for what you needed. And that trend's alive and well. The internet is still around, and if you can find a place, like Gary said, that'll tell you not only which hotel is open, but what experiences you can have, where you can go and be safe. There's a lot of opportunity to create new experiences for entrepreneurs to figure out something that is worth offering people and satisfying their needs. If their needs are to feel safe on a cruise ship, then you could build easily an internet app that somehow only books cruise ships with certain people who can demonstrate, or they can upload that they've been tested. And there work needs to be done, but I think that when you say stay away from investing in travel or travel and leisure, a little bit what Mark's thesis was, not quite his thesis, of course, but of course, I think if you look at investing as a whole in travel in general, that it could be a bad idea. A lot of people have lost a lot of money, especially with airlines, this obsession that people have with investing in airlines. But when you look at it, Expedia was once, I don't know, $5 a share or $8 a share or something. And it's now, although it's been flat, it's now $80 a share. You're right. Expedia was a really good idea at the time. It's a curation and an offering of services. So would love to talk to entrepreneurs who have a new or interesting way to package experiences, to cater to a specific audience, as well as to simply inform people, what's available and what's not available that meets their needs. I think that'd be a great investment. And it's all about technology.
Absolutely. Mark, to you, continuing on that.
I'm 200% with Julio there, 200%. I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about an airline. Now, I want to go back to what everybody's talking about. COVID is not the reason why you go camping. COVID is not the reason why you go glamping. It's because of the experience. It is the experience. You make the experience well, people go to it. And that is, now, as far as technology, I'm going to tell you a couple technologies that I think are awesome. Now, whether they work or not, who knows? Turkish Airlines, you put your stuff on, no one touches it. They spray it down. It's supposed to be clean. Whether that's that or not, who knows? But that's what it is. Then they spray you. Then the hotel I'm at, they have a robot. Brings my food, does the cleaning. Okay, takes a little bit longer, but cool. Then they bring a mirror with weights for me, and those are rubbed down, and I get to do my workout. And then I go through a scanner to see my heart rate and my respiratory, and are my lungs full of fluid. So these technologies are pretty awesome. Now, how accurate they are, all that, that's a different story. But that's where AI and technology is going. And now this is data. What else can you do with that data? That's what's going to be interesting.
Well, that's definitely where things get exciting. I mean, whether it be on the assistance side, recreate catering, customized experiences, all of this and how things shift and change, to your point, absolutely. Kent, to you, and then Noble will finish out before we get to the lightning round. Ken, to you, where do you see technology, something like blockchain, for instance, which you have a little bit of experience in, how do you see that playing a role in the future of travel and hospitality?
Yeah, before we dive into blockchain, I think that everyone's like nailing the head right now about it's all about data aggregation. What do we do with this data, etc. Dealing with a lot of like supply chain companies over the last couple of months. One of the Fortune 50 companies came up to me and was like, hey, we're dealing with like 3x our normal like volume in the last 3 months than we do in a year. But we don't know where all this data comes from. As everyone was saying before, it's how are we going to gather this data successfully and manipulate it and analyze it like moving forward. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the space, and a lot of companies are looking more onto the data side now and investing in innovation than they were 6 months ago. Regarding the blockchain side, I can't say COVID has done anything like great for it, especially anything moving the hospitality space. I would say there's a couple startups that are coming around. They're like, oh, we can do like contact tracing, etc. on the blockchain. I don't think there's too much merit in that. That aspect very much how we looked at EHR records 2 years ago. So I can't say that there is any blockchain movement in the hospitality space, but everybody staying at home has done a big boon for like decentralized finance. Looking into video games on the blockchain, Decentraland, a couple other interesting things are coming through the pipeline soon. So has affected the industry in other ways.
Everybody's yield farming these days. We'll talk about that tomorrow, though, a little bit more, but just as a fun little tease. Noble, to you real quickly, how else do you see technology, whether that be AR, VR, playing a big impactful role? You've already kind of teed it up, but I would love to hear just a few more thoughts. And then we'll come into the lightning round as well.
No, just the final part is the experience. I had a comment from what Mark said, and I thought he really hits the nail on the head. We right now are looking at a company that focuses 100% on medical tourism. They become curators of where to go with medical tourism, how to find the right doctors to perform, almost like I would almost say the Yelp of medical tourism, and then being able to direct you to those 5-star experiences. The reality is there still is a huge disparity in expense for medical procedures globally. And, the gentleman who we're talking with, he is from India and moved to the US. And he said, I never thought that I would be sending people back to India to get the top medical care that they needed. And yet that's become a significant boom and has not stopped during the COVID crisis. In fact, it's actually been a boost for their business. So the experience is key. And at some point, maybe another discussion, we got to talk about medical tourism because it's a huge impact in a big way that makes 100% sense, particularly now with the world just shrinking. So for sure, let's talk about that another day, Kyle. But yeah, that's just to talk about Mark. That was it. That was the key #1 experience, and it's something like a $7 or $8 billion industry.
I mean, look, I think we'll kick off the lightning round. Quick thoughts on what this all means, because I'm seeing both Mark and Julio agree with you and throwing thoughts left and right to us. So audience, I'm going to give it to you so you get the impact. And then Gary, Kent, I got a quick question for you before we come to the final. So Julio, super quick, and then Mark, your quick thoughts as well on the idea of medical tourism and now what's happening here in these markets as we start to shift. Julio first.
Well, the best investment is when you can find 2 or 3 big trends and they're all coming together, right? And you're killing one bird. I mean, one bird with 3 stones, three birds with 1 stone. You've got the medical problem, which nothing. What else can we say? Do we have a medical problem or don't we? Right? Well, of course we have a medical problem. Do we have a medical costs problem? Do we have a medical, inefficiency problem? Do we have a very unfair medical system? Yes. Okay. Number 2, you've got you have different medical systems in different places, and there are many countries with a lot of great doctors, but not enough patients or not enough paying patients, and you've got the income discrepancy. All of these trends, and I could go on. Are screaming for curation of medical experiences. We have an aging population. I mean, you could just keep adding trends to it, and you're going to get to the idea that medical tourism is the thing to be focused on. And you could put them all even on a cruise ship. If you want to save the cruise ship industry, you can make cruises, hospital cruises. I mean, we're all going to get sick at some point of something. We're all afraid of getting sick. We're all getting older. And if you're talking about medical tourism, and with our background here at Yva.ai Capital on Latin America, on Africa, places like that, it's something waiting to happen. And I'd be all for one way or the other, investing in that entire concept.
I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm getting younger. Hanging out with all you guys, I feel like I'm getting younger. Audience channels us. We're feeling younger, but I joke, but I do agree. Mark, quick thoughts as well on furthering that on what Julio said.
As I like to always say, I like to give real examples. $8,700 to tighten your chin in Beverly Hills, okay? And they'll just tighten it. You go to Turkey, it's about $7,500. And then if you need other work done, they will just do it part of the procedure. And the hospital is more beautiful and more relaxing than in Beverly Hills. It's a no-brainer if you want to do if your neck, your shoulder, your boobs, your whatever, okay? You want to do it at a foreign country. The doctors are just as good. They're just as caring. And it's about 70% cheaper. Sometimes 50, depends on what you want to do, and et cetera. But it is amazing. And they're backed up. They are backed up. These doctors are buying mansions, et cetera, and they're awesome. It's there. Now, as far as the boats, yes, and as far as the from the boat standpoint, I've been thinking about this. Think about a ship where you only have 10 to 30 people, where you do some social distancing, but you do some bonding, and you go fishing or whatever, and you go to Italy, different places, so you can do it without coming, 3,000-4,000.
You're absolutely spot on, and I don't think there's anything else more to add other than the fact that with Noble's experience in AR and VR, that now plays a role in the idea of telemedicine and telesurgery. We'll just call it that term for right now, and that really the best. And we talked about this around education, as well as that the best of the best soon, no matter where they are in the world or where you are in the world, you can still get that treatment. You can still get that care. So when it comes to travel and hospitality, you may be traveling, you may be glamping, maybe on a boat, maybe hanging out in your RV with your e-bike. But nonetheless, you can still get the care and be taken care of by one of the best anywhere in the world at any time, no matter what it may be. So definitely very interesting to watch, and something that has been accelerated with the digitization of the past 12 months, not just 6, past year. Things have changed dramatically in that industry and will continue to go forward. Gentlemen, we are at the lightning round. We're coming here for closing thoughts. I would love to get each of your thoughts as one piece of advice to investors and entrepreneurs looking to get into this industry. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you? Kent, we're going to start with you. Piece of advice, any closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, I think just general thoughts is that, travel industry has taken its hit right now. That doesn't mean that there aren't good value investments to be made, especially to come in to, support them and thinking, out 9 to 18 months, in the future. Easy way to chat with me. Twitter's the best, at Kent Magashima, first, last name. Best way to reach me, and I'd love to chat there.
Wonderful. And thank you again for joining us today, Kent. Julio, to you. Advice, closing thoughts, where can everyone find you?
For an entrepreneur, just please check that you're original. Just please check that you're original. And if you have an original idea, I believe you will find funding. At least you're checking 5 boxes right there. Many people have businesses, they don't check that their idea has already been developed somewhere else. So as long as you're original, you're welcome to reach me. I just put in an email on the chat where you can reach us.
Awesome. Mark.
You won't find me in jail, and you will not find me in a bar. You will find me in a pet store. You are lonely. Adopt a pet. Adopt a dog. and invest in pets. Invest in pet nutrition. That is an easy investment, and that is going to blow up more than anything, including AI.
Bold statement. However, to back that up, the pet industry and the amount of money people spend on pets every year is multiple billions of dollars. It is an industry to not be forgotten, whether that's from pet food to pets themselves or to pet accessories and technology playing a role, including AI in their lives and our lives as well. So do definitely check that out. I'll support Mark on that. We'll see how it plays against AI, but nonetheless, it definitely is a big industry. Noble, to you, advice? Closing thoughts?
I can only, Gary probably has something to say, but I can only say to Mark, who's going to watch all those pets when people go back to work? So it will be AI, just to let you know, and they'll be using VR to watch them. But there's a lot of people getting pets.
I love it, man.
3D
There are a
pets,
lot
here
of
they
people
come.
getting pets don't need pets, right? They should never have a pet. But that's a whole nother story. But just my closing thoughts, I like to, I'm a little bit different than Julio. I don't think that someone has to be a completely 100% original, but they have to be really solid in their execution. There's a reason why, there could be, I believe there could be multiple hamburger stands. I believe there could be multiple, we, in the US, we always say there's always going to be a top three. And so I think that the goal of our particular style, especially in the pre-seed and seed level, is to find founders who are committed to their vision, regardless of what it is, and then have the capability to execute in a solid way that we can feel confident in. More importantly, even though we focus on VR and AR, our accelerator is open, it's agnostic. So for those people who want to become part of the cohort at M Accelerator, it's very easy to just submit. We get about 1,000 people submitting to be part of our cohorts, and we're happy to see people across the spectrum. We didn't even get into the food like we did last time, but that's a big part of travel and tourism as well, and how those once you get there, how are you going to be served and how are you going to eat? So I'm very excited about the space, and I believe that during this adversity, we're investors. We're always looking for the outlier opportunities, and so we're contrarian by nature. So as long as the founders are contrarian, I think there's opportunities.
Absolutely. And maybe we'll all be, all those new food experiences will be all plant-based. We'll see. Plenty to come on that later. Gary, to you, close us out. Closing thoughts?
Yeah, so we look at it, we look at it today and listen to what we said. So COVID comes and people are going down doing RVs. There's a problem with travel. We think about medical tourism where the prices are a lot cheaper. So, Steve Jobs said it, right? Think differently. Think about what the opportunities are based on what the circumstances. What would you do in that situation? And I've made some of my best investments that way. Predict where the market's going to go. By the way, AI can help, by the way, Noble. So I think there's a great opportunity if you think out of the box. I like the idea of medical tourism. By the way, I've gone to Latvia to get my teeth. I was traveling to Russia. I went to Latvia. It was a lot cheaper, about a third of the price of getting work done in the United States. I went to the doctors in Russia. It was about a 50th of the cost and high quality doctors. So I'm for it. I mean, the thing is, you got to think differently. We are global. Look at where there's an opportunity to get the best prices and service. And by the way, so if you're doing that, think about the opportunity to create a company around that. So you're taking them over to Latvia, you're taking them to India, you're taking them to Latin America. And by the way, this changes all the time. Prices change. So you got to make sure you're able to move your model around. It's like offshore outsourcing. So I think there's an opportunity. Listen, think differently, stay positive, look at the bright side of it. These times will be gone. The Spanish flu of 1918 took a couple of years to go through, but people survived, and they move forward. We'll do the same thing. It's helped us prepare better, and digital transformation is here to stay. So get stuff done.
I'll correct Gary on that. Get shit done. GSD Venture Studios. Check it out. All right, everybody. I'll plug it for. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. And also, Cleet, thank you for joining us. I know she had to drop off, but really appreciate her time as well and input.
I'll tell her. We'll bring her back. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'll tell her. She had a prop. Yeah. Okay.
She was on the ferry, and we were just so honestly, again, and so thankful she could join. Thank you, Gary, for the thumbs up. To your audience, Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. If you want to be on the show, investors, we'd love to have you share your thoughts and insights. Reach out. Elena and I and the LA Token team would love to hear from you. Entrepreneurs, you want to come on and get the chance to talk to us, pitch us, share us with your idea. Reach out online, as we're all available on social media 24/7, as everyone has said, or feel free to come on the show. We'd love to have you. Thank you, Mark. And a big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team. As always, thank you, Julio, for putting this show together and making VCTV possible for you anywhere in the world. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. We'll be back here tomorrow with a double episode. That's right, 2 episodes, full packed day, talking about consumer and consumer e-commerce. How are we buying things? What are we buying? What's different? Where are the opportunities? Where should we be investing? And my personal favorite, fintech, blockchain. What's happening? What's not happening? Maybe a little yield farming, maybe a little decentralized finance, maybe a little infrastructure, contactless payments. Who knows? So much to talk about in one day. Tomorrow, as we lead up to our big show at the end of the week, Friday, talk about everything that's happening around the world in technology, in regions, and investments. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host.